Authority Midcoastside for February 24th, 2025. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Slater Carter,
Present.
Director Dye,
Here.
Director Boyd,
Here.
Director Nagangas,
Here.
Director Marsh,
I'm here.
Chair Rudd.
Here. Item number 2 is public comment, and so folks are allowed to comment on items that are not on the agenda, but you can also comment on things that are on the consent agenda. And you will have 2 or 3 minutes. Do we have actually time it to 2 or 3 minutes? I can't remember.
I believe it used to be 3 minutes at one time, but we don't actually have a timer
Yeah.
anymore.
Well, I think for Sewer Authority Midcoastside, 3 minutes is good. So,
Yes.
is there anybody who would like to comment on during public comment?
Yeah.
Anybody on Zoom?
I will. Keisha invited members of the board who were interested to go to the California Municipal Finance Officers, I think it's officers, convention.
Oh.
And so I took him up on it. It was down in San Jose. So it was accountants, auditors, all these financial people, controllers, and it was such a wonderful group of people. They were all just so excited about what they were doing and what's new. And they'd say, where are you from? And I'd say, well, I'm an elected. And they go, wow, we don't get those here very often. And but there were a couple things that I thought were very useful that are coming up in the accounting world. They don't replace the spreadsheet and that kind of audit, bookkeeping and audits and so on. But there's one called economic resource planning, which you look at like we've been talking about for years, the lifespan of your equipment, and then you put together a plan.
Asset management kind of thing?
It's kind of an asset management thing, but it's more for planning. It's more for planning. They were talking about having it go out 15 years.
That would make Greg Diegas happy.
Yeah. And the other one is called PBB, Priority Based Budget. And it's the way I understood it, and we should actually get George and Callie to help clarify this, but it's based on it. You look at your budget and you see where you're spending the money, and you aggregate the areas and you see how that combines then to see what your strategic plan priorities are. And then you look at both of them to be able to just see where you are spending your money and where your time. I thought it was they were very valuable. I said there were 3, and I keep thinking there was a third one, but I've forgotten it. But in any event, I think I'd like to have it maybe later in the year when things slow down, have a discussion with George and Callie about these things. I think we're doing the budget right now, and this would take at least a year's planning to be able to get a cohesive document.
Yeah, it seems kind of like a no-brainer, isn't it, that the budget's actually a policy document? Not just a funding document, but it's supposed to be reflective of your policy.
Well, yeah,
and your priorities.
and this
Seems
is
like, why is that like a new trend? It's like,
well, it's a new trend, except this is what you do in your family. You know, you look at your bills, you go, geez, I really didn't want to spend that much on restaurants.
Well, it's kind of like what, an operating budget and a capital. You know, capital gets kind of weird.
yeah,
It's an overall look at it. It's all the budget
Right.
elements. And so that's why I was thinking it would be useful to get George to help us to give us a longer discussion on this. Next year, the meeting's going to be in Palm Springs.
And
And
it's in the winter.
it's at the end of February.
Perfect.
Start making plans now.
Next director's joining.
See the wheels turning.
Mark your calendar.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that's good. I support that, yeah.
Yeah, and Keishan went and so did Callie.
Mhm.
And we all went to sort of different things, but it was overall, it was more general ideas, not all of the,
Not shop talk.
well, not all shop talk and detail, which is always good if you're into that, but some of us like concepts and plans.
Yeah, right.
So anyway, it was worthwhile. Thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Okay, let's move on to item 3, consent agenda. Is there anything anybody wants to pull?
I just like to make a comment. I think this paper that our general manager wants to present, he doesn't have to pay the fees to be at the conference, and he's going to pick up the cost of the airfare and the lodging. So it seems like a very, very good thing for Sam to have our general manager presenting a paper on a technology issue that's of importance to the industry. And
Mhm.
so, good job.
I think Sam should consider paying part of his expenses. We get benefit from it. You've presented multiple times. This is your third?
Fifth
Fifth.
international, fifth presentation at an international conference. I presented at Berlin twice, at Nice once, and at Munich once, and at Singapore.
Nice
All-
travel.
Yeah.
All during Sam's tenure. No, but it's all what's happening in Sam. We put in the form of a paper and then present it.
Well, I'm guessing you have air travel rewards too, right? That you can use. I mean,
It depends on what carrier you choose. Not all, not
Yeah.
always one would go that
well,
route.
I'm not against a contribution.
Well, maybe we should pull it from the consent agenda.
Yeah, let's do that because then I'm curious, it's kind of international recognition for our general manager as a benefit for Sam.
Nancy?
If you're gonna pull it, I will wait until that discussion.
Okay. So can I get a motion to approve the other items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Can you call them out?
I'll second, but I think we should just go ahead and authorize it. If we want to consider supporting it with some funding, we could do that as an item on the subsequent agenda. We don't need to do it tonight. He's not asking for it and it wasn't agendized,
Good plan.
but he is asking for authorization.
Okay, well, let's just, will it stand for another meeting next time?
Yeah.
Okay, so just bring back that data next time.
Okay.
So we'll
But
just
we're
pull
gonna
that.
we're gonna keep it on the consent calendar to authorize the trip.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Sounds good. So
So we're just moving the consent agenda.
so moved.
Is Nancy okay with that? Cause she,
Are you okay with that, Nancy?
Yeah, I just had a question about I just had a question about kind of what Keishan has brought back from those conferences. So if we're going to talk about it at a different meeting, that's fine.
I think you've been pretty good about that. We've heard about your travels, you know.
Yeah, I mean, what I brought back, I can answer how it's going to help Sam. Well, we're going to bring.
Yeah, we'll bring it back.
Okay, fine. That'll be quick.
So,
On the consent
Eager to
agenda.
talk about it is a good sign, so.
so I need a second on this motion to approve the consent agenda.
second,
Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Nagangas,
yes.
Director Boyd,
Yes.
Director Dye,
Hi.
Director Slater Carter,
Yes.
Director Marsh,
Yes.
Chair Radek.
Yes,
Who was the first on that? Just so,
Barbara, and then Paul.
got it. Thank you.
Okay. Oops. All right, so we're moving on to the only item of regular business, item 4A, which is authorize the general manager to execute an amendment to the contract with Kelcon Systems, Inc. for routine electrical maintenance and SCADA support services at SAM facilities.
Just to give a background, to this particular item. 5 years back, we had decided that we will go out for an RFP and get an electrical contractor on board. So we sent out an RFP. We got response from, I think, 3 firms, out of which we found out that Calcon was the most responsive, and it was the lowest too. So it brought it to the staff, brought it to the board, and the board authorized a contract for Calcon for 5 years, starting from July 1, 2020. So their contract is coming to an end on June 30th, 2025. So with the way Calcon has been working with us for quite some time, even before we had a formal contract starting June 2020, they've been with us for more than maybe 15 years, 10, 15 years at least. At least 10, more than 10 years at least, more than that. Okay. So they know every little corner of sand, electrical conduits, where they go and what needs to be fixed, and they're pretty familiar with it. They do our annual maintenance, not only at the wastewater treatment plant of all the assets which SAM own, plus they also do the maintenance for the lift stations, which are owned by MWSG as well as GCSG. And we use them quite often for even fixing lift stations, electrical stuff, which are not owned by us. So all in all, staff is very happy with the way Calcon has been performing in the past. And I wanted to actually put that in my staff report, but since I was in a conference, I couldn't put it together completely. But I knew that I could share it to with the board on Monday. So we've consolidated what has been spent over the past 5 years, how much over the contract or how much under the contract. So let me just share it, and then let me just share. Okay.
You should know that my desktop looks nothing like that.
Oh, it's amazing. It looks like somebody's bookshelf.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know how to increase the font. You guys able to see it?
I think just the view, you could go on the right and then magnify
It's in
it.
the bottom right-hand corner.
Yeah, down.
Yeah.
You see it's in the bottom.
I
right-hand.
know it's hidden here.
There you go.
There you go.
There it is.
I have to
Okay.
do it a few times.
Yeah, one more time, at least.
Okay,
Okay, can you go a couple bigger?
No,
Yeah.
we can't read that.
I can't read it.
Click it once, Kishan.
Okay, yeah, with this.
You get?
Mouse is going elsewhere.
You can, if you can click on view, then you can zoom in too.
His mouse isn't cooperating.
Oh.
That's the point. Here it is.
Time to charge it.
It's going somewhere outside. Tim, you want to help?
Where did it go?
I don't know.
Well, Here, you
It's
talk
kinda-
and
yeah,
I'll,
counter-
Yeah.
you
So-
talk and I'll try to make.
So
this
first
work.
year, 2021, Calcon's total expenses was 315,000. They had a contract for 350,000, so they were under about 34,000 in all. For 21, 22, we had an increase from that contract by about 25,000, and this is the time when we had the winter storms. So we had a lot of work to be done by Calcon, where they had to clean up, make changes, change wires, all that. And all that had to be done under the maintenance contract that we had. We did not have a separate PO for doing all these things.
Sorry. Just tell me
Yeah,
where you are.
good, fantastic. So that was 21, 22, we were slightly higher by about 24,000. 22, 23, again, we were under, so it was 22,000, we were under by about 27,000. 23, 24, well under about 262,000 instead of 350,000. Now, as of now, going on.
What?
Yeah, we still have, yeah. So current fiscal year, although
sorry.
7 months have passed on the 24, 25, we've incurred about 267,000 for a total value contract of 350,000. But if you consider the 7 months and and find out how much they should have incurred. Then they're over by 63,000. But what happens is a lot of these calibrations and other measurements, everything is done in the first half of the year. So that's why it's over. But the trend, if it go in the same trend, I'm sure it'll be less than 350,000. I don't foresee any major problems if the way the winter storms are behaving, if everything is well curtailed, then it should be fine. So on an average, we've seen that it's always around 350,000 or less than 350,000. But staff would recommend, but going forward for the next five years, since the rates also change, it would be better if we can do 400,000 instead of 350,000.
And
so
give
that
a
we can get-
cushion,
Yeah, that is it basically. And I've discussed it with our general counsel. Jeremy is also here, and I believe our purchasing policy does allow this, but we are here to answer any questions.
Record Don?
I don't know if you want to stop sharing or not.
I often come in and sign the checks and have looked through the Calcon invoices many times. And I think it's really great that you can see that they have different people with different skills in
Stop sharing.
specific areas who come and deal with different problems.
Mhm.
So looking through the package that they submit is actually pretty impressive to see the scope of the different issues that they deal with here. And I also think that with potential significant inflation ahead, locking into a 5-year contract at a set rate is a good idea. So I'm very supportive of this.
I would agree. Director Nagengast?
Yeah, a couple. Calcon, I'm familiar with them too. They're very reputable, and they do work that's asked of them in major facilities. Just wondering why you went up to, essentially 400,000 a year, because it seems like they're going to be under. They're just anticipating with the way the economies are going. You're seeing some things that's going to be probably around that. I mean, you want to come back and ask for more. I get that.
Exactly.
And obviously, it looks to me if they don't need it, they're not spending it.
Yeah, and
So that's
and who knows what types of storms we might get in the next few years, and it's better to have a little more extra.
and just so the community knows, the public, you're talking routine maintenance, $400,000. And maybe it's obviously less if this is the case an emergency happens. But just brief us a little bit what you mean routine. I mean, why is it so hundreds of thousands of dollars?
Yes, they do the electrical maintenance, meaning they do the calibration of all our electrical equipment. They also check the health of the electrical equipment. They do a mag check, find out how much the amperage is actually coming down, whether it is risky and we need to change it, whether there's a potential for that. Plus, they attend to calls. We have SCADA, that is a supervisory control and data acquisition system. So they attend to calls if there's anything to be done. It's a software, so definitely certain support will be required. Certain maintenance might be required, or some changes might be required in programs. So all these, they take it up. And for example, suppose in the middle of the night, we have an electrical problem. And what do? We just call them and then they come immediately.
Very reliable.
Very reliable.
And that's important. People need to know that.
Correct. And the other thing is, when we know that there's a storm coming up, there's a huge storm coming up, they depute their people to stay overnight at Half Moon Bay so that they're available at our call. Because like us, they have so many other, clients. So you can understand that everybody would want the electrical person to be there immediately. So that way, whether we have a problem or not, they come here when we know that there's something likely to happen.
Yeah,
So,
92 in storms. We got
exactly. Yep.
So that's pretty small.
And they are pretty far away.
They are pretty far away.
They also know the system and they know how to work with.
Oh,
our
there's no
crew.
learning curve.
So
right?
there's no learning curve, and I would rather have somewhat of a buffer. That at the end of the year, we can see other things that need to be done. We've still got the problem of worrying about flooding for the electrical building, and the discussion is to move it. Who better to participate in that than somebody who already knows the system? They will probably have some down in the weeds suggestions that would help things along too.
Failure in this environment can be very
Yes.
expensive.
Yeah.
You know,
Director Marcia.
yes, Director Marsh.
I just, I actually, I appreciate Calcon's reliability and their service. And I know we get detail in the monthly reports about exactly what they're doing. And I appreciate that they only charge for what we need and we only call them for what we need. My question was just more as a newbie. If we do the 5-year contract for 400,000, is that what we build into the budget every year? And since that's 15% or so more than what we've had in the budget the last 5 years, and 4 out of the 5 they've been under budget, do we need to go to 400? Would it be safe to go to 375? If we're not building into the budget the no less than no more than amount, then maybe that's not a concern. But if we're building in 400 and they don't typically even reach 350, then I wonder if we need to go that high.
Well,
Well, you have to cover it. I mean, you have to, don't you?
yeah, we have to, and we've always brought the option back to the member agencies, saying that if there's money left behind, we would return it back to the member agencies. We bring that at every budget.
Oh, okay, that's new to me. Thank you, Kishan.
We've done that in the past, and
Yeah.
the managers felt that there's not much left behind, so they said we shouldn't be returning it back, but they have the option always.
Oh, good. Thank you. That was the information I needed.
Yeah, and that is for the general budget. For collections, because it's a contract with the member agencies, we do pay it back to the member agencies and reduce our next year's budget. We do that.
Great.
But because
Good,
this is
thank
a
you.
general budget, we build it into it. Okay.
Good information. Thank you.
Anybody else? Could I have a motion?
So move.
Okay, the motion is to authorize the general manager to execute an amendment to the contract with Calcon Systems, Inc. for a not to exceed of $400,000 per annum. Could I have a roll call, please?
Director Naganwest?
Yes.
Director Boyd?
Yes.
Director Dye?
Aye.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes,
Director Marsh?
Yes.
Chair Radha?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item 5, general manager's report.
Yep, we have the detailed report. There was a request at the last board meeting to attach, to bring to the board last 10 years of flow consolidated and bring it year-wise. We have attached that. If there are any questions, staff is here to answer.
It's interesting. Yeah, thanks.
I like this graph. It's fun.
Good.
I thought you would.
Oh, not just in the content, I like how clear it is to read.
Right, yeah, that was great. Very useful information. Thank you.
Okay, I just wanted to share something. If we're not talking about the flows, then I just want to share something else about. Yeah. Come on.
Got it? Uh-oh. Hey, it's working. And big and.
Okay.
Yeah, just move it up a little more.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
See.
Mouse 101.
I'm gonna-
now they keep
What's happened?
changing them.
Professional.
By the time you get done
You
with
do.
101.
I didn't do
we're up to
anything.
347.
Oh.
Sounds like her son's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me talk about it. Then.
Talk about it, oh my God.
Okay, this is
Okay.
Here we go.
There you go.
okay.
Is that big enough?
So
No,
No,
And big and.
get in there. Hang on.
go to the bottom.
It's not,
there we go.
Bottom.
That's
Go to the
better.
bottom.
What?
Go to the bottom. I want to see show the total. We don't need to go to daily. Just go down.
what, like, okay. All right. Going down.
Yeah. Okay.
Chris, do you want it centered?
Yeah.
You want-
Yeah, just wanted to, thanks to the finance committee. Last year, we decided to move our money from LAIF
Mm.
to CA class. And we moved that in the month of April. And of course, it's very easy to make deposits, very easy to make withdrawals. We've actually got interest of about 44,000 so far.
Very good.
Very nice.
So, I mean, it's an ongoing thing, but just wanted to share it. It's
Great.
good money, 45,000.
Yeah.
So all thanks to the finance committee and of course board to give us permission to go ahead and do that. Okay, that's all. I just wanted to share it with you.
So do we have an attorney's report?
Looks like Nancy's got-
Oh, sorry, Nancy.
That was just applause.
Oh,
Okay.
Jeremy, do you have an attorney's report?
Yes, a short attorney's report. I'm going to talk about PFAS this evening. There have been, not surprisingly, with the change of administration, some recent developments. I think I've talked to the board before about biosolids, as that's one of the areas where the Biden administration was really preparing to do rulemaking. But you know, they kind of, the clock ran out on them. And so they released a risk assessment a week before the end of the term that ultimately concluded that there was sufficient risk associated with land application of biosolids that there could be potential risks to human health associated with that, which would be the kind of thing you'd do if you were planning to then do a rule to regulate biosolids. But they never got to. It doesn't appear that the Trump administration is going to do that. But one interesting thing on the biosolids front is that there have been a number of recent lawsuits filed against both EPA and against chemical companies that produce PFOS, arguing that biosolids used in fertilizers have caused contamination or otherwise reduced the value of particular properties. And so it's an interesting and emerging area that, you know, depending on how it plays out, could have an impact on SAM and their ability to cost effectively dispose of biosolids. So emerging area. I think if one is generally anti-regulation, one would probably be, comforted that it seems less likely we're going to have a formal rulemaking. But if there's health risks, obviously that's something people need to be concerned about. Then also there's this is a little bit more distant from SAM's direct mission, but certainly affects the member agencies, and that is there are two rules regarding PFAS that ultimately went final within the last year. One pertained to drinking water and maximum contaminant levels primarily for PFOA and PFOS. Those are the big ones that have been largely the focus of regulation. They were recommended and set in the Federal Register at 4 parts per trillion. Those numbers were controversial in that the methodology used by EPA to set those numbers was a departure from prior efforts and prior methodologies. It used a cumulative effect analysis where you took in a variety of different perfluorinated compounds, and then ultimately that drove the numbers down. And just as an aside, the number of 4 parts per trillion is exceedingly low, lower than any other state has set for their individual maximum contaminant levels. And I can just speak in the one basin I'm particularly familiar with, that most wells are below 10 or 8 parts per trillion. But there are a whole lot more that are between 4 and 8. You wouldn't think so, but it's true. And the number that ultimately was rejected by EPA in finalizing the rule was 8 parts per trillion. And for a lot of agencies, that is the amount of cost associated with trying to meet the maximum contaminant level. In order to do that, you have to do either wellhead treatment or centralized treatment, which can be very expensive. And so what's interesting is it's going to be interesting to see what the Trump administration does. So there are final rules, so they can't be ignored. They can't be rescinded. But they've been challenged by AWWA, which is a very serious trade organization, which is known for its good science. So EPA, having transitioned with the new administration, requested a 60-day stay in the litigation to review their position and see what happens. So anyway, stay tuned on that. The court, the DC, the case is pending in the district, the DC circuit, where challenges to EPA rules are brought by statute. So stay tuned on that. The court did allow 60 days of a pause for EPA to kind of reevaluate where they are on that. I wouldn't be surprised to see a settlement with the challengers, although I don't know that from pure speculation. I could be completely wrong, but that wouldn't be out of the question. Certainly would make the environmental groups very unhappy if that happened. And then the other big one that is potentially has huge implications for water and wastewater agencies is the listing of PFOA and PFOS, which are ubiquitous in the environment. They're everywhere, with many different sources: air, consumer products, water, you name it. Is to list PFOA and PFOS as hazardous substances under CERCLA, which means that it has all sorts of potential implications. It could lead to the reopening of existing closed sites. It could lead to a whole new round of CERCLA litigation where you have parties conducting cleanups and then bringing cost recovery actions against other parties. It's the implications are significant. And so again, that final rule by EPA was challenged by a number of different organizations, and whether that rule will be stayed or not to allow EPA to reconsider, the DC circuit is still considering that. So we haven't gotten a ruling on that yet. So anyway, lots in flux, lots happening, and these are things that definitely have the potential to affect SAM and its member agencies.
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Do we have any director's reports?
Question, are we good with the bank?
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
question too.
We plan on submitting it to the bank on probably Friday or Monday because Nancy is not in California. She is in the East Coast. She'll be back on Friday. So we get it rolling starting next week, Monday. So then we'll have 10 business days to go and sign the card.
So from Friday, we have 10 business days, so,
Once we submit the letter, so we're holding on the letter,
okay,
which has been signed by the secretary. So we have to submit that letter and then you guys can go and start signing.
Okay.
so Monday,
let's start from next
Monday,
Monday.
March 3rd.
Yes.
Okay. So, topics for future board consideration, anyone?
I'd like to have a discussion on the California finance
Mhm.
points that were brought up.
But you had mentioned earlier that maybe not right
It's-
away.
It's been a
but-
long-term
Okay.
agenda.
And
So it could
we
be added to the
talk- we
list.
could look at it at the finance committee too,
Correct.
first.
Yes,
So let's
Right.
discuss as a finance committee and see what we need to
Sounds
bring to
good.
the board.
All right. Do we have any closed session items that we need to discuss tonight?
No,
I do not.
no.
Okay, so this meeting is adjourned.
Good.
Is this the record?
Thank
Oh, wait.
Thank you.
Was that a prank? Wait, we should have a closed session after all. Good night, everybody.
Good night.